guys, it's Jessie. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another video. And welcome back to another reading vlog. In today's video, we are going to be reading all of the winners of the Goodreads Choice Awards from 2024 with some caveats that we will get into. So, first things first, it's March. No, it is March. It is indeed March. Well observed. Did the Goodreads Choice Awards happen 4 months ago? Yeah. Shall we talk about it? No. Moving on. Like I said, I'm not going to be reading every single book from the Goodreads Choice Awards here. So first things first, let's put up a little graphic on the screen of all of the winners of the Goodreads Choice Awards. First things first, I'm not going to be reading books I've already read, obviously. So that takes off Funny Story by Emily Henry. I will include like a little review of the ones I have read, but obviously I already read this kind of when it came out last year. I believe I gave this a 4.75. And then also The God of the Woods, I read for my Reading All the Mystery Thrillers video, and I think I gave this a 4.25, maybe, something like that. Not going to be reading any of those, and I'm also not going to be reading Heartstopper Volume 5, which won Young Adult Fiction. I've already read that, I believe. I don't mind Heartstopper. I'm not oversold on graphic novels. I think a way a lot of other people are, but I do enjoy the TV show, so not reading that. And then I'm also not going to be reading any sequels to books that I haven't read. That takes out the romantasy category because I haven't read the Crescent City series by Sarah J Maas, and those books are so long, I'm not going to be reading those. And it also takes out, kind of tentatively, maybe I'm being a bit cheeky with this, horror with Stephen King, because one of the short stories in You Like It Darker, I believe it's the sequel to Cujo. And do I want to read Cujo? Not really, but I don't want to read Stephen King whatsoever. I don't really enjoy his books that I've read previously, and it takes off the TBR. So, I mean, maybe I'll read Cujo one day, and this would have spoiled it for me. So I just cannot do that to myself, you know what I mean? So we'll not be reading that one. And then also with young adult fantasy, I have not read Divine Rival, so we'll not be reading Ruthless Vows. And then also, sorry, not to make this like cut down the entire TBR, I'm also going to be doing a separate video with some of the non-fictions. I've already read almost all of the non-fiction category for a separate video, so I'm not going to be reading non-fictions for this video. So not to like cut absolutely everything out of this video, but today's TBR is going to be The Wedding People by Alison Esbach. This one, best fiction book, and I've got this on my Kindle. Then we also have The Women by Kristen Hanna. This one, best historical fiction. Obviously I have this one out from the library. Also Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune. This one, best fantasy, so I'll be reading this as well. Also The Ministry of Time by Kellyanne Bradley. This one, best sci-fi. And then also How to End a Love Story, which one, best debut novel. So I think a 5-book TBR is manageable. I'm kind of hitting all of the main ones. And so yeah, I think without further ado, let's just get into the reading vlog. I'm very excited. Okay, good morning. I am currently, well, last time I checked I was 50% through The Women, and then suddenly I checked back again and I was 80% through. So I was like, oh damn, okay, I need to give a little update before I accidentally finish this book altogether. I wasn't expecting it to go by so quickly, but I am enjoying this one. So in this one, we're basically following Frankie, who is a nurse in the Vietnam War, and we're following a little bit of her life before and then kind of when she comes back from the war. And I don't really want to say too much more than that because that's kind of all the plot is, but obviously it's like much more in depth than that. But I am enjoying it. I'm really liking Frankie as a character. I think I preferred the first half, at least so far I'm preferring the first half to the second half, just because the first half was a lot more action packed. It was when she was actually deployed in Vietnam and being a field nurse basically, or I don't know the correct title for it, but basically being a nurse in Vietnam, and that was a little bit more interesting. I think as we've come back, obviously it's kind of talking about a lot of important topics, the way people were treated, the way women were treated especially. I think it's really interesting, but like just I think my intrigue lies more with like the actual like action of the war, if that makes sense. I am liking this one. I feel like I've always had quite like a macro perception of like the Vietnam War and I guess conflict in general, but I think being in the UK education system wise, we don't really learn much about the Vietnam War at all, and it's just interesting to see from like a more kind of individual perspective. It's not something I've necessarily considered too much. I've kind of always just thought of it in terms of like, not to get so much into geopolitics, it was obviously a terrible decision for the US government to, you know, be in the Vietnam War and altogether. So that's kind of just been my perception, but it's really interesting seeing it on, like I said, a more individual level, seeing kind of like Frankie when she comes home, the way people are treating her and like the lack of nuance between, you know, hating the government for putting these people in the war, but then like taking it out on the individual people like the nurses and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? So very interesting. I hadn't necessarily considered that perspective all too much, so it's definitely very interesting. And as you guys know, I love anything with a feminist lens, so I'm enjoying that aspect of it. I think she's got some really great relationships with the fellow nurses in the war, and I'm enjoying that as well. I will say like a couple of the plot points are semi-predictable. Like I feel like it's just kind of like something I can anticipate at each stage. I've only read one Kristen Hannah book. She does tend to kind of do traditional sad narratives, if that makes sense, and I know that she would have interviewed a lot of people, and this is very much real life for a lot of the people that were nurses or soldiers in the Vietnam War and stuff like that, but it doesn't feel super unique. I feel like if this wasn't necessarily Vietnam War set, if it was, you know, any other conflict, I would have felt like it was very repetitive, just because I personally haven't read a lot about the Vietnam War, whereas like World War I and II, I feel like I've read a ton of books and like movies and media and stuff that's set then. That being said, again, I am enjoying it. I do think Kristen Hannah is a really good writer. I'm not sure where we're going to go towards the end now. I'm a little bit nervous that it's going to be really sad because I know I cried a lot in The Nightingale. I asked some friends that have read it and it was very much a mixed bag on how sad it was. This is one, obviously, I feel like within any Kristen Hannah book, look up trigger warnings because there's certain things that happen that might be quite upsetting. Like, I'm enjoying it, but it's not like monumentally good, and I don't think it's as good as The Nightingale, at least at the moment. I don't think. Feels a little bit less, I don't know, I feel like The Nightingale is very much like well-rounded and like very much, I don't know how to put it into words, unique slightly, but like it just felt more of like a kind of like her best work type of book rather than The Women, which is a little bit more maybe generic and could have been written by, I think, multiple authors, or like different authors. Does that make any sense? I don't know what I'm talking about, but nonetheless, it's a good historical fiction book and I'm enjoying it so far. It's just not my favourite of all time or anything like that. Hey guys, so I ended up finishing up The Women by Kristen Hannah. I did end up getting my copy from the library, and I honestly, sadly, ended up feeling a little bit underwhelmed by this one, and I felt like I was kind of left wanting a little bit more from the story. I think because of The Nightingale and kind of the overwhelming hype that that got, and then also the overwhelming hype that this got, I feel like I had reasonably similar expectations that it would be similar to The Nightingale in terms of kind of like, I guess, a grandioseness, if that makes any sense. Like, I feel like The Nightingale was very much like a very significant work, and it felt like a very like heavy book but like quite impactful, and it felt like it was saying a lot, whereas this one, it felt almost like quite a generic story. I feel like, not that there needed to be crazy twists, but like if you were to plot out a story about a woman going to Vietnam as a nurse and then coming back and the things that happened, I feel like every plot point is like exactly as you would have expected. Nothing was really surprising or felt particularly unique. It wasn't necessarily that I was left wanting more in terms of the characters. I definitely felt very connected to Frankie. It was just like I was almost wanting more from the book in general. It just didn't feel particularly special or anything like that. I ended up giving this a 3.75. I think, yeah, I just think the genericness, I guess, of the story. I haven't read anything about the Vietnam War before, but I just think it blends together a bit with kind of like what you would expect, I guess, from this type of story. And don't get me wrong, it was very good. The writing was good. It was just some of the character decisions and behaviours, like aside from the stuff that's like deliberately meant to be annoying, infuriating and like bad, like that just kind of felt a little bit kind of predictable, and like there was very little kind of growth until the very end, if that makes sense. And yeah, overall it was okay, and I definitely would recommend it if you enjoy historical fiction, but then again, I feel like maybe if you enjoy historical fiction you might have read like a lot of this before, so who knows. But 3.75 definitely isn't a bad rating. I was just expecting a little bit more, I guess, and I think towards the end I felt myself getting a little bit bored as well, which obviously is not ideal. So that is the historical fiction book done. I can't lie, I have been already making progress in other books, and I think I've just been feeling a little bit all over the place at the moment, and kind of like dealing with a bit of burnout, kind of lingering from the end of last year. So I think the rest of them will probably be like when I finish the book updates rather than like halfway updates, if that makes sense, just because like sometimes I'm really not feeling like the vibes of being on camera like when I'm halfway through a book for some reason, like if I'm just like enjoying it, and I don't want that to stop me from reading and think, oh, I can't read the rest of this book till I update halfway. I would rather kind of like lean into like the chill reading when I'm on vibe, if that makes sense. But next up, I think I will chat to you about The Ministry of Time, so I'll catch up with you then. Hello, I have now finished up The Ministry of Time by Kellyanne Bradley, and I did really enjoy this one. I decided to give this one like a 4-star, maybe like a 4.25, but I think I'm pretty happy sitting around a 4. I did really enjoy this one. Basically, we are following this woman who's actually unnamed, I think, for the entirety of the story, but she works at the Ministry of Time, which is basically a place where they are bringing people from the past into the present through time travel. They're basically plucking people out of different periods of history kind of just before they're about to die, so it doesn't have like a big impact on the kind of course of history. They're not trying to like change things drastically, but she is assigned as a bridge to one of these people, Graham Gore, who's like a Navy commander, and she basically has to help him kind of acclimatise to the 21st century. And whilst that's going on, there's maybe like starting to build a little bit of a romance there, and also she's kind of maybe starting to find out some things about the ministry that maybe like aren't quite as she had initially expected. So I really enjoyed this one. I really enjoyed the dynamic between the two characters. I thought it was really fun. I will say I definitely think the kind of first half was a lot stronger than the second half for me. I really just enjoyed kind of seeing the adaptations to the 21st century. I thought that was really fun. I enjoyed seeing the character dynamics. I think it lost me slightly in the second half when we got kind of a lot more into the kind of like time travel type narrative, a lot more about the kind of like investigation of trying to figure out what's going on, and certain things were happening, and the ending got, I guess, slightly confusing a little bit, I think, and I was just a little bit kind of thrown for a loop. I feel like a lot of the time travel stuff kind of came more into it in the second half, and I've never really understood what people meant when they said this kind of feels a bit debut-y, but I do think this kind of does, in terms of like maybe it could have been slightly refined a little bit more at the end, just in terms of I feel like there was a lot of big ideas that maybe I feel like we could have fleshed out slightly more, or kind of focused on individual things rather than kind of like a load of different things were going on. But it definitely got quite action-packed towards the end. I do think it kind of slowed down pace-wise in kind of, I guess, the third quarter, and it started to lose me a little bit there, but overall I still did really enjoy it. It was just when I first started it, I did think it could be like a 5-star, and unfortunately it wasn't, but like a 4-star is still a very good rating. I feel like this is a very kind of generally likable book. I can definitely see a lot of people really enjoying this, especially kind of readers that don't necessarily pick up, you know, more than like 10 books a year. I think this would be a good kind of general crowd pleaser, potentially a good book club book as well. So yeah, overall got positive feelings on this one. I did enjoy it. I personally had slightly higher expectations, but that's just because I was thinking it could be a 5-star, and I'm absolutely obsessed with time travel stories. If you guys have any time travel recs, do let me know. It's like my favourite, I guess, subgenre of sci-fi / romance. So yeah, I did enjoy this one. A 4/4.25, and yeah, I definitely think this is quite a widely kind of recommendable one. Oh, and also every now and again we get a little bit from kind of Graham Gore's like diary, I guess, in the, is it the 1816? I think it's the 1800s. Yeah, in like a different text we have his diary entries, which is fun. And yeah, I did also find it interesting that main character wasn't named in the book. I always find it interesting when they do that. Don't really know the point of it, but like I like to mention it to seem smart. So yeah, 4 stars, definitely a positive review from me. I have now finished up How to End a Love Story. I gave it a 2.5. I didn't really like it at all, really. So I think this is my first update to my terrible YouTuber, but as a little brief summary, I guess, in this one it is a romance, and it's between a screenwriter and the kind of author of this book they're adapting. But these people kind of have known each other since childhood, and I will say why, because it's revealed in the first chapter. Basically, her sister jumped into traffic to end her own life, and he was the car that hit her. So meet cute. No, it was a little bit of a weird one. I don't understand why that was necessary for the story. He wasn't like drunk or anything, it was just kind of like there was nothing he could do, like, so it's not like he's to blame. However, I feel like that's maybe something that's kind of just like difficult to get over, do you know what I mean? And I think my issue with the book was that like it didn't pick kind of a side to go on. Like, I think for a while she was like really like overly almost mad at him, when it's like it's very clearly not his fault. Like, I understand having these poor emotions towards him, but like don't take it out on him. And then I think the forgiveness came, and then they were like, it doesn't even matter anymore. And I was like, well, it kind of does. Like, it's kind of really odd, and like how could you not look at him and think of that? Do you know what I mean? I think they were like trying to make them out to be rivals, but it just like didn't really work. I did not see the chemistry or the tension between them at all. I think the main female character was actually like really quite annoying, and I really just didn't vibe with her at all. I finished this a couple of days ago and I'm already like losing it out of my mind, which is kind of a sign that like it's just not something that I really have enjoyed very much. I'm quite glad that I didn't pick this up physically. I only paid like 99p for it because yeah, this one wasn't really very enjoyable at all. I don't think there was chemistry. I wasn't really interested in the plot. Like nothing about it felt particularly good, and I think like the overall romance, it wasn't like cute, like swooning or anything like that. This is a couple that I think will break up after the book has ended. So yeah, very underwhelmed on this one because like I do tend to really enjoy romances, but I think there's a certain kind of style of romance that I just feel like is very low effort, kind of like not developed, that type of thing, and I feel like this kind of fits into here. And it's not like it was no effort because like it was all smart, like there was, I think there was a little bit, but nothing like overpoweringly. It was just like almost low effort because I was like, I just don't care about the characters. I feel like I don't really know anything about the main male character. I don't feel like I saw very much of him. He was quite charming and stuff, but like I kind of almost have no idea why he would go for the female main character because she was so annoying and just really like, she's quite like insecure, but then also very like angry, and yeah, just like not my vibe. I did not enjoy it very much, unfortunately. But this is another single update, so sorry about that. Like I think I said before, I'm not like super vibing with like chatting loads, but I think I am going to start Somewhere Beyond the Sea next, so I guess I'll catch up with you maybe halfway through it, also maybe when I finish it. I can't lie, I will not make any promises, but yeah, 2.5, not a strong one from here. I'm actually quite surprised it won the debut category, just because there were other books in there that I thought kind of more popular, but like the only reason I think it won is because I think romance is the most read genre, and therefore when you put it against other genres, like people just have heard of this book maybe more than others, or like Goodreads users are more likely to have read it over other books, if that makes sense. That's just my theory, but yeah, I'll see you when I have more progress in another book. Hello, I kind of, okay, that's just ignore. I have now actually finished up Somewhere Beyond the Sea again, sorry for a singular update on this one, but I have technically a double update because I'm halfway through another book, and so that will be a halfway update. I finished up, like I said, Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune. So I really enjoyed The House in the Cerulean Sea by the same author, which this is the sequel of. I think I gave that a 5. I really enjoyed it. This one I decided to give a 4. I thought it was good. I enjoyed being back with these characters, obviously. However, this story just didn't really feel necessarily like it needed to take place, unfortunately. I feel like the first book very much like ended as a standalone and like didn't really need continuing. I liked the ending of that one, and this one kind of furthered that point, I guess. Felt a little bit like kind of a crash grab, to be honest, which isn't great. However, like, because my favorite thing about the first book was the characters, I did enjoy being back with these characters, and we also got the addition of a new child in here as well, which was fun. The House in the Cerulean Sea basically follows like a magical orphanage for like magical children, and they're kind of discriminated against by the general public. And then this is a sequel, but I won't necessarily really say what it's about because I don't just want to spoil the first book, but it's very cute. The characters are very wholesome. It's very much found family, stuff like that. So I like the new child that gets introduced a lot in here. I listened to some of this via audiobook. It's the same audiobook narrator that did In the Lives of Puppets by him, which I really enjoyed, but he is very enthusiastic and he almost kind of tells it like a children's book. And I will say the voice he does for Chancery in here, who is one of my favourite characters, does make him feel like a little bit of a caricature. It's a little bit silly and a little bit hard to listen to at some points, but overall I did enjoy the narration, and I did listen to some of it physically. But yeah, like I said, it was a 4-star, but I think a lot of that 4-star-ness from me is kind of riding on the coattails of the first book, unfortunately, and kind of riding off my enjoyment of that. Like, my favourite parts of this were just kind of when the children were together and they were like making jokes and stuff like that. I didn't find the story particularly gripping, and I also found it pretty predictable in a lot of parts, just because, you know, it's quite a wholesome book, so I feel like you can kind of expect from cozy fantasy certain things, and like, you know, characters are safe, stuff like that, do you know what I mean? So overall I did enjoy it. Like I said, it was a 4-star. I don't want to take away from that. Like, I feel like a lot of what I said is negative, but that's just because like the stuff I enjoyed about it is like the characters. It's so cute, and like the same stuff in the first book that I enjoyed, so I don't feel like I have a ton of new stuff to say about this one. But like, I still didn't enjoy my time with it, if that makes sense. So yeah, this is a 4-star. I don't think it's like essential reading if you read the first one and you don't really want to read a sequel. However, like, I do think it's enjoyable if you enjoyed the characters from the first one. Do you know what I mean? So now moving on to our final book, actually. I am now halfway through The Wedding People by Alison Esbach. I'm not sure. I read about 40% of this physically, and then I've just been listening to it on audio for a little bit as well, and I'm about 50% of the way through. In this one we are basically following Phoebe, who pretty much has kind of gone through a divorce. Her cat's died, which happens at the start of the book. It's not mentioned heavily, but it's obviously sad. And she's basically decided she wants to end her life, and she goes to this hotel that she's always had kind of dreams of going to. She's got these kind of like plans to like have room service, etc, etc, but when she gets there she realizes the entire hotel has been booked out for a wedding, and her room's like accidentally been sold to her, and like the whole hotel is meant to be booked out, and she runs into the bride. The bride is obviously kind of trying to get her not to do this, and it's kind of so far feeling like a portrayal of just like humanity and kind of like an interesting story of them becoming friends, stuff like that. So I'm really enjoying it so far. Actually, I like the writing in here. It's not like this crazy story, but I think with a lot of lit fic I do kind of like stories like this where just the writing is good and the characters are interesting. It's interesting to see who's kind of interacting with a lot of the people in the wedding as well, and yeah, kind of building a friendship with Lila. I'm enjoying this so far. I will catch up with you when I finish it off. It's kind of feeling around a 4 at the moment, and yeah, I'm just like excited to see where it goes from here, and finding it to be like a very enjoyable read. So yeah, I will catch up with you probably to conclude this video actually when I finish up this book. So I have now actually finished up The Wedding People by Alison Esbach, I'm not sure. I really enjoyed this one, quite surprisingly. I was thinking it was going to be okay, like I didn't have bad expectations going in. However, I ended up giving this one a 4.5. I thought this was a super strong read. I don't necessarily know what it was about it that I enjoyed so much. I found the writing style super readable, so I really enjoyed just kind of reading it. I felt like I could pick it up very quickly, and I was very inclined to kind of keep reading. It doesn't actually have like set chapters as well, so that was something that I would have potentially been a bit kind of apprehensive about going in, but it didn't feel super long, and it was broken up by kind of like page breaks and stuff like that, but just no set chapters. I really enjoyed this. I liked following our main character. I think it talked about a lot of kind of important issues of kind of like what you want as a person, like kind of changing your life, stuff like that. And yeah, I thought it was really good. I liked a lot of the characters. I like the kind of moral of the story. I liked that our main character talked to quite a lot of different people kind of in this wedding party, I guess, and learned a lot. I liked the relationships that were formed, especially between Lila and the main character. I thought they had a really interesting friendship, and yeah, overall I just really enjoyed this one. I kind of ended up waking up and just kind of finishing it off in the morning yesterday, literally before I even got out of bed. I was like, I just kind of want to finish it off. I'm really excited about it, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, this was kind of a maybe slightly surprising 4.5, just because I thought it'd be okay, and it was one that I kind of was less anticipatory of for this video. I read maybe about 60% on my Kindle and about 40% on audio. I did prefer reading on my Kindle, but like the audio wasn't bad by any means. So yeah, I think a 4.5 is a very solid rating for that one, and I'm really excited about it. So I'm happy that I picked it up, because I don't think I necessarily would have if it wasn't for this video. So that does kind of bring us to the end of the books that we are reading for this video. I will just quickly insert a couple clips of me talking about Funny Story and God of the Woods, because I do want to include kind of 4 reviews if you haven't watched those videos. Just quick thoughts, and then we can wrap everything up all together. In this, we are following so many characters. Basically, there is this summer camp on this kind of like grand estate type of thing, where the owners of the estate, like the rich family, they have people that like run the camp every year. Follow Alice, who is the mother in this family, and her son Bear goes missing in this area. I think that's in like the 1960s. And then we also follow some of the people at the camp, Barbara and Tracy, in Tracy's point of view, but we follow her kind of friendship with Barbara building over the course of the camp. And Barbara is Alice's daughter. It's about 10 years after Bear, the son, has gone missing, and then Barbara goes missing as well. So we're following that, and then we are also following the perspective of Louise, who is kind of the camp counselor in charge of Tracy and Barbara. We follow Alice in both timelines, and then we also follow Carl in the previous timeline, and he works at the camp. And then we also follow the investigator Judita. She is one of the investigators kind of trying to figure out the case. So we are following lots of people across lots of different timelines, it's quite overwhelming. It's just a lot to follow. The amount of timelines and the amount of characters I think is slightly overly ambitious, unfortunately, and I think it's just trying to do too much. But besides that, I am enjoying it. It is good. It is good. It's just not kind of what I had hoped. I don't know what I was necessarily hoping for, but maybe like a bit more heart or maybe a little bit more intrigue. I did finish up The God of the Woods and I did like this one. I unfortunately did have very high expectations. Like I just got the vibes that it would be a 5-star and it wasn't. I gave this one a 4. I thought it was good. I think we had either too many characters or too many timelines or like a mix of both. Overall, I liked it. I liked the resolution of everything and I thought it was a good read. I think if you read more literary, you would also really enjoy this too. I think mystery lovers would also like this. I'm up to page 276 in this. I am loving this. We're following Miles and Daphne, who have both just been dumped by their significant others who are like childhood best friends, and then they have now got engaged, so their previous exes are now dating each other and engaged to each other, and so they have to move in together because Daphne's had to move out of her ex's house because the new girlfriend is moving in, and it's kind of like a fake dating, you know, forced proximity type of vibe, and I am loving it and I like them together. I love the banter. I just love this writing. Like I get so sucked in, so I'm really enjoying it. Like definitely 5-star potential. I have finished Funny Story by Emily Henry and I really enjoyed this one. This is a 4.75 for me. It just wasn't quite a 5-star. It didn't quite live up to Happy Place. I wasn't rooting for this couple quite as much as those two, Harriet and Wyn. I just love them. It just makes me want to reread Happy Place, to be honest, but like I did really enjoy this. Do not get me wrong. I think this is an absolutely excellent book. I wasn't a huge fan of how late the conflict was and how kind of close to the end I felt like the resolution was, but like I also felt like it did kind of make sense for the characters. It was a 4.75 for me. This is the final kind of stack of books. I love just holding up a stack of hardbacks. It just like tickles something in my brain. Those ones then obviously The Wedding People and also How to End a Love Story. So if I were to kind of rank these in order of enjoyment, I think I'd put a Funny Story first, then I would put The Wedding People, and then God of the Woods, A Ministry of Time, Somewhere Beyond the Sea, and then The Women, and then How to End a Love Story. I think I really enjoyed everything that I read besides obviously How to End a Love Story. I didn't like that one very much, but the rest of these were really good, and I do think overall, like, I think this is a decent set of winners. I also think this kind of really speaks to kind of what last year was release-wise, kind of the big releases and themes and trends and stuff like that. I know this has been a little bit of a long time in the works, so sorry. I really hope you guys did enjoy, and if you did, don't forget to give this a like down below. Hit subscribe and turn the bell to join a little club, and make sure you turn on all notifications. Then you'll be notified every single time I post a new video, and if you want to watch one of my other videos, there'll be 2 on the screen now to pick from, as well as I linked up in the cards from earlier. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye!